Got a minute?
Yeah, what's up?
She's not giving us much energy, specifically carbs, which we know you like.
Thanks. Must be why I'm feeling like shit. Have you slowed down the metabolism a little bit yet?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead and start pulling protein from the muscles and get that converted over to glucose ASAP.
But she said she wants to burn fat.
You know that only 5% of body fat stores can be converted. No, go for the protein stores.
Right away, but we can't do this for long, right? Everyone here is working overtime and not looking too hot, and we're about to start breaking on the heart muscles.
I know. Just do your best. She's our girl. We gotta take care of her.
I have yet to figure out where this myth comes from, but let's put it to bed. Let's look at the work of Reyes and others 2019. In this study, researchers took 81 sedentary but metabolically healthy, overweight, and obese women who had not been dieting within the last 6 months and had a body fat percentage at or above 30%. Researchers put all of these women in a caloric deficit of around 500 calories and separated them into 3 groups. One group was assigned sedentary levels of activity. This group was expected to complete a measly 5,000 steps daily, or about the same amount I do in a single phone call. One group was assigned moderate exercise, which for them was about 10,000 steps, plus physical activity intense enough to reach at least 60% of their VO2 max. And the last was prescribed intense exercise, which was some good old weight training. Now, after 6 months, researchers noted that all 3 groups lost more fat than muscle. In fact, after an initial net loss of muscle at 3-month follow-up, the groups prescribed exercise experienced an increase in muscle mass from the 3 to 6 month period. But wait, there's more. The group that was assigned intense exercise not only lost the most weight and body fat on average, but from the beginning of the intervention all the way to the 6-month mark, they gained an average of around 1 kilogram of muscle. So not only did their body not eat the muscle, the body had enough sense to notice it was working pretty damn hard and created more muscle mass. In a yet-to-be-published preprint, Reyes and his team repeated this experiment in males and noticed a similar pattern. All 3 groups of males lost body fat throughout the 6-month intervention, and in the first 3 months, muscle mass was lost. But after that period, all 3 groups gained muscle mass upon examination at the 6-month mark from the time of the 3-month follow-up.
Stitch this with a fact so ridiculous you didn't believe it until you looked it up yourself. I'll go first.
Fat people are more likely to survive heart attacks, cancer, any other severe health event. They call it a paradox. But it's just a fact.
It's a paradox because obese people are also more likely to suffer those conditions in the first place.
Fascinates me that I have a completely public profile.
Is that a trigger warning for calories? I have no issue with trigger warnings for serious things like gore, excessive violence, or mentions of sexual assault, but calories? Your life must be wonderful if that is something that concerns you.
And yet you did absolutely zero, and I mean zero looking to see that I am a plus size fat individual and I am on like 700 calories a day, and yet you posted this about me. Like, you have the absolute audacious confidence in yourself to think that you could post this about any person who is fat, and that you think that this actually has something to make sense about them, because you are so confident, like so audaciously confident that fat people are fat because they eat a lot of food. My dude, start looking in and doing some research into hormones and endocrinology and get your fat phobic butt out behind the keyboard and off people's profiles before you decide to spout this absolute crap.
700 calories is way too low. Eating 700 calories in an environment without professional guidance is just a binge waiting to happen. And if you were being honest, that's probably what's going on. In the comments, when someone pointed out that this is physically impossible, she says, it's biology, not physics. You know, my dad was bald by 27. At this rate, I'll be lucky to make it to 25 with a head full of hair. The laws of physics apply to biology because the biological world is physical. Ay, Dios mío.
You ain't no Barbie, I see you work at Arby's. Number 2, supersize, hurry up.
There's also no benefits of being a hating ass bitch, but here you are, looking dumb as fuck on the internet. Could be me though.
The video he stitched says there's no benefits to being obese, and his response just absolutely oozes intelligence. His response convinced me she was absolutely wrong. In all seriousness, nothing she said was controversial or even incorrect. I don't know why he got so upset. So the video to the right has a thin woman talking about, pardon my French here, how much she wants to ride dudes with dad bods. I see a video like that and I think, oh, that's lovely, that's her type. And I move on about my day because I got 99 problems and the dating preferences of people I will never meet ain't one. But here we have a fat activist reacting to the video with a caption that says, thin people post stuff like this and then glare at fat people in public. I truly just love how thin people can't win with these folks. You say you want an in-shape partner, you get shit on. You praise dad bods, you still get shit on. It's incredible to me. There's nothing right you can say. If you're skinny, they have to assume the worst of intentions.
Ooh, 25 years is an awfully long time to shave off my life. There's also literally no evidence to support this at all. See this article here? I suggest you take a look at it. It is one of the many studies that confirm, without a doubt, that being fat does not shave a quarter of a century off your life. In fact, it shows quite the opposite. People with a bit of fat on their body live the longest.
Oh, good Lord. When you are citing your sources, it's best that you make sure I can see what the hell you're citing. So here's the study she's referencing. It just looks at all-cause mortality by BMI, so inevitably it runs into a paradox because it doesn't account for behaviors such as smoking, drinking, eating habits, etc. But here's the T that our doctor left out, and it's incredible that she left it out because it's literally in the results section. It's laid out again after the results section, and another time in table 1 and 2. This paper says outright, the overweight category and obesity class 1 were not associated with increased mortality, but obesity class 2 and 3 were. Either you didn't read this paper or you didn't mention this because you're a liar.
The largest ever epidemiological study, which followed 1.8 million people over 10 years, showed that people with a BMI between 34 and 36 had a longer life expectancy than people with a BMI of 18 to 20.
You are citing 40-year-old research to make your point. You're a doctor. You have received higher education. You know this is verboten. And then when a commenter called you out for citing a paper that uses data from the 60s, which is a time when communicable diseases were putting up Wilt Chamberlain numbers, and it was harder to get fat if you were poor, you just said, oh, well, there were a lot of people in this study. Like, what? Who cares? If there's methodological issues, it doesn't matter how large the sample size is.
In other words, fat people live longer than skinny people. Another study shows that active fat people have half the cardiovascular disease mortality rates of sedentary people in the healthy weight BMI category. So,
wow, I am shocked. You made a claim and put up a secondary source in the background and then cited the primary source that the secondary source cited instead of the secondary source that you posted in the background. I wish I could provide my viewers with the facts about the source you cited, but contrary to popular belief, telling me the last name of the lead author and the year the research was published actually doesn't tell me anything about the article you're citing, and without the source to the blog, I'll never actually know. Anyway, here's some research that isn't over 20 years old. Here we have this study by Zhang and colleagues, 2020. Researchers looked at data from over 22,000 patients and separated them into 3 groups based on activity level. Those groups were sedentary, which means they did no exercise, inactive, which means they did at least 1 to 149 minutes of activity weekly, and active, which means they did at least 150 minutes of activity per week. The results should shock absolutely no one. Researchers made sure to account for behaviors such as smoking and a history of cardiovascular disease. Now, even though activity did decrease levels of cardiovascular disease within the overweight and obese groups, weight still played a role. Normal weight sedentary people had a 40% lower chance of developing CVD than sedentary obese individuals. For a comparison, the study found that inactive obese people only had 34% lower odds compared to sedentary obese people. Physically active obese people achieved 50% lower odds of CVD than overweight sedentary people. That's fantastic, but guess what? Inactive, normal weight people had 64% lower odds than sedentary obese people. Just by moving that ass a little bit within normal BMI range, you are doing more for your heart than an obese person who is working out regularly. In fact, even in the overweight active category, the odds were only 55% lower, which is still worse than the inactive normal weight group. I made this chart using the data from the study to make it easy to understand as possible. As you can see, while physical activity helps, maintaining a healthy weight in conjunction with physical activity is the best for risk reduction. The best thing you can do for your ticker is exercise and maintain a healthy weight.
You cannot convince me that health is determined by a body size. Explain to me how this was the paradigm of health in the 1960s, and this is the paradigm of health now. What groundbreaking science says this is less healthy than this? None. It's a beauty standard. You are working out to achieve a beauty standard. It's not health.
Those images were a commentary on the beauty standard of the time, not health. Neither of those images you displayed mention health at all. Why are you implying what isn't there?
So one of the things that I saw on my For You page today was a clip from Grey's Anatomy that was addressing fat phobia in the medical industry. And so I just wanted to take this video to talk about it. So Grey's Anatomy actually got it right, where doctors and other medical experts prescribe weight loss as a course of treatment for a bunch of different conditions that, can revolve around pain, mental health issues, etc. And when you hear that out loud, it kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? When there's better treatments available. So now the question becomes, why do doctors and other medical experts provide weight loss as a supposed treatment for all these different chronic conditions? So let's talk about it. So doctors typically prescribe weight loss as a treatment for a bunch of different conditions because of the culture that we live in today. We see fat folks and, being in a bigger size as something that's kind of gluttonous and bad. And that kind of carried over to the medical system as well, where the BMI index started, and it ranked different people who have different types of bodies, different personalities, different genetics, different environmental factors, different stress factors, different racial factors, with dealing with the discrimination or sexism from the medical industry. To categorize these people all into one category. Now, logically, that doesn't make sense, but that's what the BMI index, and that's what it does. Keep in mind that the National Institute of Health said that that weight loss and diets actually don't work to improve health or well-being whatsoever. So why do doctors prescribe it? Well, it comes down to the fact that we have absorbed not only from our culture that being fat and being in a bigger body is not attractive, it's not good for your health, it makes you chronically obese, but also this bias has also affected scientific research. The research that is around weight loss has only been around and has been researched for around 2 years. And what I mean by that is most studies that surround weight loss only are conducted for about 2 years. Everything after that, all of the weight regaining, all of the mental health effects from not loving your body, and everything that's been going on physically and mentally, that's not in the study. And so studies that condone weight loss have actually not seen the detrimental effects that weight loss can have. I'm going to post another video about this coming up, for part 2.
You spent nearly 3 minutes saying absolutely nothing of substance. Unfortunately for my viewers, I saw that video and refused to suffer alone. He claims it's the culture, not the fact that it's been shown to improve inflammatory markers, improve liver function, improve insulin sensitivity, improve kidney function, reduce the risk of cardiovascular events, remits and reduces the severity of sleep apnea, improves blood pressure in people with and without hypertension, and many, many other things. But yes, blame the culture. Go ahead and never make that part 2 because you've already embarrassed yourself.
New Tik Tok challenge. Try to drink around your girl's waist.
What in the fat people hating, misogynistic, pointless 2002 body standard is this?
Give me a second while I look for the misogyny and fat shaming in that video.
Being body positive is not an excuse to neglect your health.
I was just thinking the other day that what this app needs is another able-bodied person to come on this app and say, hey, fat people, stop loving yourselves. You're unhealthy. Because somebody in a smaller body who's studying for a personal training exam that doesn't have a lot of science about nutrition, genetics, biology, or chemistry knows exactly what it means to be healthy. Now, look, I'm not saying that personal trainers aren't, good people. Some of them are. I follow some pretty good ones, but they're also not fat phobic like this person I'm stitching from. Health is not determined by size. Health is not determined by size. Health is not determined by size. You can be in the quote unquote underweight, normal, overweight, or obese category and be healthy. You can be in the underweight, normal, overweight, or obese category and be unhealthy. But regardless of whatever it is, nobody owes you health. Get over yourself.
I don't know what it is with these people always implying things that were not said. Nowhere in the video did she tell fat people, oh, stop loving yourself. In fact, the video says the opposite to me. Love yourself enough to take care of yourself. It's a fact that obesity is a risk factor for disease, regardless of how many skinny people get illnesses. It's just a fact that there's going to be more fat people who do. It's a risk factor. With that said, I want to thank all of you for going on this journey with me and want to remind you all to love yourself enough to take care of yourself. And with that said, I bid you adieu.